Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church live stream worship service. I am John Long, and I'm happy to be worship leader for today. Accotink UU Church is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world through our actions to bring about justice and by the honoring of a web of nature of which we are all a part. All are welcome here in this justice-seeking, earth-healing community of faith. You are welcome no matter whom you love, no matter your identity or heritage, no matter your beliefs or background, no matter your means or abilities. You are welcome here in this religious community. We also welcome the ancestors and descendants. We welcome the people who made each of us, the biological ancestors, the spiritual ancestors, teachers, and guides. We welcome those who imagined and made our congregation possible. We welcome the ancestral people of this land and recall that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahonik tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing with the people of this land, whose bodies and spirits live on in their descendants, many of whom are members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawamak Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing, so that all the descendants together shall one day know full justice. And with this, let us welcome the longings and hopes of all the descendants that we might live for them today. And now I invite Jude Robinson, our worship associate for today, to continue our welcome.
If you're new to Accotink and you would like to learn more about the church, please be sure to reach out to me, to one of the greeters, or a member of the board. Contact information is posted on our website at www.accotinkuu.org. On our website, you can check the online order of service on the worship section of the webpage. While you're on the website, be sure to check our events page for upcoming virtual gatherings and other news. I now invite you to close your other windows or apps and devices. Take a deep breath. Center yourself for worship.
Our challenge lighting today is by Catherine Callahan. As the chalice is lit, let us come together in this sacred space we've created. Let the cares of the day fall away and know that here is a place for quiet reflection, for a pause in our lives, for breathing into our true selves. Let what's said and felt here add richness to the dimensions of our lives and spiritual practices. We are strong together in community. We share the experience of being human. Let the warmth of the chalice, lit during our time together, connect us and carry us to the world. The act of lighting the chalice is an appropriate symbol for the bonds that we've helped unite us together during the tumultuous year and a half past. Just as the chalice lighting has helped dedicate our services before the pandemic, it helped us create a virtual sacred space during our online services. And now as we look forward to re-entering our physical church again, we can reflect on the meaning of a sacred space and now search for a sacred space in spite of all the turmoil.
Our reading for today is titled Community Needs Strength. It's taken from a book, Dreaming the Dark, Magic, Sex, and Politics by Starhawk. We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people with whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength, strength that joins our own strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter. A circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free.
Finding your sacred space. How do we create a sacred space in a world of disruptions? Remembering the disruptions of last year and looking forward to our return to the sanctuary, it's a good time to think about what sacred space means to each of us. Our time for all ages, we followed our boy to a search for a quiet place. He looked all over and finally found it at home within himself. I want to share with you my own search for sacred places, what means most to me when I was looking at them. So let's just go through a few of them. And they're all pretty much things that just happen to be a lot to me. One of the ones that injuries in Delphi. After the tour buses had left, the evenings was getting dark. We wandered up around the Delphi, near the Oracle of Delphi. It was amazing, the mystical feeling of an energy source that was seeming to be emanating from the earth. And you can understand why this place is sanctified by generations of worship. Not only do you have the monuments of ruins themselves, but the distant mountains that make you feel that sense of place. A very different experience was in Chartres. On the French plains, it's hot, sunny. In the distance, as we were driving in, we saw the cathedral looming over everything. When we got there, we entered through a side door into an immense dark space. Dark. But that darkness was punctuated by music. There was an organ recital going on. And the music was just incredible. It gave you a whole feeling of sense of the sacred. And then you just got deeper into it, you saw the stained glass. The stained glass allowed some of that light from outside to enter and be transformed through the centuries-old stained glass windows. You could feel how this awesome sacred space must have felt to pilgrims throughout the centuries. And yet another experience like that was again quite different. This is Newgrange, a Neolithic monument on the east of Ireland. The massive monument transports us back to a sacred space that was built over 5,000 years ago. It's a religious site, aligned so its central passage is only fully illuminated with sunlight on the dawn of the winter equinox. Amazing feeling of being one with generations, millions of years ago, thousands of years ago. And maybe the last place that I thought of in this search was a sacred place that doesn't have man-made structures. You don't need them. When I first viewed the Fox Glacier on the South Island of New Zealand, the beauty of the valley, the surrounding mountains, the awesome force of the glacier itself descending, created a sacred space for appreciating this wonder of nature. Along with these travels, I was doing my own personal spiritual journey, trying to find a religious home that would give me some of those same feelings that I felt here. And about 5 years ago, I found it at Accotink, a Unitarian Universalist church. Here, this sanctuary provided a joint feeling with this religious community, a community that embodied many of the things I'd admired in the other sacred places I'd visited, a community with a respect for nature and for other cultures, one that accepted insights from all religions, appreciated art and beauty, and celebrated earth-based rituals. My new sacred space became the AUUC sanctuary, and the many special places inside the church: the pulpit, the bronze flaming chalice, the circle of people quilt, the light of hope quilt, the community-made wall hangings, the tree of remembrance. And then outside, and there's many special places surrounding the church, especially the memorial garden in its place of quiet reflection and healing, the nearly native garden, the children's garden, and the lands adjoining Berkeley Park. The weekly Sunday service became a regular part of my life, providing an uplifting, comforting, sacred space that I could count on being there every week until March 15th, when all of a sudden it was gone. There was no church. It had been closed because of the pandemic. We were all confined to our own homes. It was a real sense of void and a loss at a time that the comfort of our church community was really needed, amid the fear and the panic and the uncertainty. And then the very next week, online services started again, thanks to a great tech team. The chalice lightings continued, although virtual now. The worship community was recreated. There was even a coffee hour recreated in even more effective form than it had been in person. And to our own amazement, many of us were able to master Zoom and reconnect to our virtual sacred space. The comforting, supportive community was back, and our sacred space had returned. As weeks turned into months, we refined our Zoom services and were able to conduct many of our activities virtually. This worked great for most of us, but not all. Some members of the community have not felt comfortable joining us on Zoom, and it will be a great blessing when we're able to reconnect with them in person. Now, as we approach this return to in-person services, we do it with the realization that it's not just the physical space, but also the community of UUs that make that place sacred. We now recognize that we make our own sacred space by developing a community of fellowship around our shared search for truth. We no longer need distant places to find that sacred space. Like the boy in our Time for All Ages story, we found our sacred place close by. Now we extinguish our chalice. And though we extinguish our chalice, we extinguish the flame, we carry it within us. We carry within us what we kindled: the light of inspiration, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. When we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out in the world. And now Judy will lead us in our community blessing.
I invite you to join me now in our community blessing with these words of David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
As we go through our coming transitions to in-person services and to a new minister, let us continue to help one another find our sacred space. A sacred space now full of people. A sacred space with community, in which the community helps each other. Each person in this space can create a sacred space for their own personal and spiritual growth.